Bitcoin hits a new all-time high for the second day in a row, also closing above key resistance levels. Now we're 1,050 days into this cycle, which began in November 2022. And we know from history that previous cycles have basically gone to almost this exact distance, with the only exception being 2013, which ran for an extra couple of months. So that time target would put us somewhere around now through to December. Now, there's obviously the flip side to this, whereby the majority of the market may begin to believe that the prices can never go down, especially when we look at where the price is for gold at the moment, hitting new all-time high prices. We can see it went to $4,000 for the first time in history, just in the last few minutes, actually. Now, the S&P 500 is also at new all-time high prices, and things are looking a little scarily similar to what happened in the dot-com boom of the 1990s. All it takes is just a reflection on the charts where we see a market breaking out through logarithmic resistance, and there is almost no reason from the market's opinion why this market needs to go down. So today we want to look at timeframes and update the charts for Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, stock markets, the real estate cycle, as we're also beginning to see the possibility of a macro lower high forming right when we're getting to the peak of the 18-year cycle. So this is why I don't think that the majority will see it as we get into the peak, and it all relates back to Bitcoin as well. So if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm doing almost daily videos here, just with the exception of a weekend here and there off to spend time with the family. Otherwise, we're here front and center for the long-term outlook as we broke through the resistance level here. All things aside, there are still good signs that we're going to see further upside for the Bitcoin bull market. We just broke out of that 7-year resistance, new all-time high prices. Closing above $120,000 was a key indicator for us that things will likely be flipping. So you've got that level right through the tops here. And when you see a market closing multiple times above that, then that's just extra evidence to weigh on the side of the probabilities that we're going to see higher prices. Of course, there are going to be pullbacks, especially when you see multiple days up in a row. This is higher highs and higher lows, not just reds and greens, but essentially the price action of the day. And as some of the other data is also suggesting, we're getting a little out of hand here with the market trying to short each of these highs. So we've got 2 new all-time highs day after day so far, and the long-short ratio is getting quite a wide margin here. 52% on the short side, 48% on the long side. And so we're potentially beginning to see the leverage traders trying to short all-time highs. Typically, it ends in one way. Basically, the shorts getting wrecked, and we would then see quite a large red bar here on the chart, those shorts getting liquidated, and then the price being able to go higher for that period. Otherwise, they'll have to withdraw their positions, hope for their sake, hopefully quietly unwind their positions as well. But generally, we sort of get to these stages where you see these big differentials, a lot of the market participants trying to short it, but of course the market keeps going against them, and that's where you get the leverage liquidations. So for the upside, it's not really a bad thing here that they're still trying to short the market, especially at a time where the market sentiment is still relatively stable in greed, as we'll look at in a sec. But for the search volume, Google Trends for crypto and Bitcoin, Bitcoin in the red, crypto in the blue, it hasn't even broken past previous highs. So there's still not as much interest as there was back in August with that previous top at 124,000, nor the top in July when Bitcoin broke out for the first time there, past those previous tops again. And basically the interest is still sitting right around those levels just before those breakouts. Crypto is still climbing higher as well. So where the price is and where the sentiment is, you're still not seeing the over-the-top kind of play that you would expect towards a top. So I don't think the top is in yet. And you can see that with the market sentiment. It did climb for the last few days into greed, but that seems kind of normal considering the price is going into an all-time high. So we got into greed, the the reading here was in the 70s, so 74, dropped off to 71, and today's at 70. So overall, we've had a higher low on the sentiment with a good low base being formed on price, and now we're seeing the price rally from that area. The ETFs also doing relatively well, nothing too extreme in the course of a week there. There have been some pretty big ETF buying, so this is the second highest week in history. On the daily, it still sits in the top 10, so it is getting towards that extreme end. However, it is on the breakout, which is a good sign for the market. You want to see that energy come back in as it busts through a resistance level, basically like breaking down a fence. You don't want to try and break down the fence with weak volume. That would then get rejected. You're just not going to do it on that occasion. So this looks like a much better option or opportunity here for the market to break through each of these resistance, as we've looked at. The $118,000 level, which was the previous double top, the 7-year resistance, and the $120,000 level, and add on to that the previous all-time highs. So things seem to be happening relatively smoothly here for Bitcoin. As I talked about with the time frames into the tops, we're still within a good time frame here, October Q4. Nothing really has changed there. The longest time frame we've seen for these cycles is around 1130 days. You can see from 2010 to the top in 2013. And so if we were to extend to that point, that takes us out to December. And I've talked a little bit about the possibility of extending into the early part of January. So it wouldn't necessarily be 1,160. It might be something like 1,140 days, where we could see that top into January and then a potential decline. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. There is still no sign that the price action wants to break down yet. But we are seeing some signs in the 18-year US land and economic cycle. So we've had a top in September, and that was a lower high so far. If this market is going to break down past the lows here at around 105, that could then start to spell further signs of a decline for the real estate cycle, which basically leads the market. So at the moment, still holding in there, but there are some signs that we could be seeing a macro lower high here. And that's part of why I keep talking about this with our members in TIA Premium. So if you want to know how we're navigating our portfolios through the peak and the decline of the 18-year cycle across all of the asset classes that I discuss in the videos, there's a link in the video description for TIA Premium. And so like we looked at with the market sentiment and where this sits and looking at this over the course of the cycles, through 2023, that's where this post comes from, June 2023, I believe we were going through the disbelief stage in the market. And that's what this post is about here for stock markets and Bitcoin. Remember, this was at a time when the majority of the market thought we were in a recession and that we were going to lead to a much bigger recession. Even the likes of Elon Musk were posting about this on X, that there was a great recession coming and it would last until 2024. Big downtrends for the markets. But of course, the cycles have kept us on the right side of the market, essentially if you're long only, going up. And this is another reason why I don't think the majority will see the tops coming. And at the moment, we're still hearing about the top could be in. This is going to be a top relatively soon. October is normally the time when we look at the 4-year cycle where the top for Bitcoin should be in, just according to history. And as long as there are still more investors thinking that this cycle has to repeat exactly like the prior cycles, the 4-year cycle, 3 years up, 1 year down, then I think we still have further to go. It's only when we get into these periods of extreme, belief, thrill, euphoria, that things have to continue to go up and there's no reason why they should go down. That's a time where I'll start to get more scared. And even when we have those periods of the market sentiment rising like that, you can still hold in for those corrections if you're unsure about that, because normally, like we've seen with Bitcoin in prior cycles, there has been a complacency bounce. And although that complacency bounce is not necessarily going to get you back to the all-time high price, so you're never going to see that exact top of your portfolio again, that's not the point of the game. The point of the game is to take some profits out of the middle. And if you take as much of the profits as possible, well, all the best to you. And that's why I'm still I'll still be holding some of my portfolio into a potential complacency bounce as well. And that all is lining up with the 18-year cycle, part of this whole multi-year bull market into the top. And as per our predictive cycles, Bitcoin has continued to rally here for October. We're talking about the second half of October being that clearer trend, that stronger move higher. But at the moment, at least for the first nearly week of October, we've really seen the clearer trend emerge in the first half of October. So it's going to be important to watch this, whether we get the clear trend now and then just a smaller gain in the second half. Nonetheless, the October month is typically up and almost straight up before we start to head into quarter four, as per some of the cycles that we are watching. Now, as I said, the liquidation's also looking pretty good. We've seen 300 million already wiped off, and we're seeing the exchange volume start to pick up. So that's a good sign there as well. Market sentiments on our side. This is for like the bull market continuing. The exchange volume still on our side. We're seeing more players come back in, or at least more money coming back into the space. And the narratives for the traditional markets continue on. AI has obviously been the big player here. Everyone's talking about AI. The stock markets continue to rally, whether there's anything left in the tank or not. The market still wants to keep putting more and more into the machine based on whatever narrative they think is running hot at the moment. And it obviously seems like the big hot narrative is AI. So the money printing is obviously going on. We recently saw Japan also come to the party, printing more money as well. So one of the largest economies in the world, their stock market ran to a new all-time high again. This has been sitting in all-time high territory now for a year and a half after not hitting a new all-time high for 34 years. So Japan, coupled with China hitting some fresh 4-year highs, China and Hong Kong looking at the Hang Seng, Europe hitting new all-time high prices. You're just seeing a printing of money globally. You're seeing bullish narratives continue to be major headlines around the world in the case of artificial intelligence. And we're also seeing commodities continue to climb higher. Silver within 3% of a new all-time high price. As I said earlier, gold hitting $4,000 for the first time, and copper starting to rally yet again after hitting a new all-time high in 2025, obviously being used in electronics and other parts of the economy as well. Therefore, there's probably some more demand here, but it's coming up towards its 50%. So we're watching now for any sort of rejection in price between roughly here and about $5.20. So another big one that relates to our 18-year cycle. Now, we've got the reports also coming out today. Link in the top of the video description if you want to see more about that, with the economic report, Bitcoin and altcoins coming up. So with all the money printing and positive news stories, Bitcoin hitting new all-time highs, gold hitting new all-time highs, stock markets hitting new all-time highs, silver looks like it's getting very close to hitting another new all-time high price. Let's chuck on the lines again for Bitcoin, looking at the next targets. Now, I've gone through and added up all of the price targets that we have here that are clustering together, looking at previous extensions. So this is how we look for the next price targets in a price discovery market. Basically, there's no other resistance overhead in terms of traditional resistance levels. Therefore, we look to our fibs to give us some indication of where these price clusters could come in. And the next one has been the mid 130s. So these are the roughly 5 different extensions that I've been showing on the channel. But today's video, I've just gone and added these all up, and it's given us an average price here of about $135,000. So right through these levels just here. And if we continue to climb, there was another price target that I had mentioned in January of this year, around $144,000. So these are the steps to the upside. Have a look at how the market responds to these levels. Does it slice through? That is strong. Does it get rejected and pull back? If it pulls back underneath previous highs, that is weak. So that's how we get to distinguish what stage of the, for example, the Wall Street cheat sheet we're in. Are we starting to run up into these beliefs, thrills, euphorias and get rejected? Or are we slicing through them easily with the sentiment still on our side? There's still not a ton of retail getting absolutely bananas about things. And then above that level is coming into the higher, was around the mid 160s. But as we get closer to these levels, which we are just a few percent off now, look from the highs to this mid 130s, so mid 135, basically 7% now away from that target that I've been sharing with you on the channel for some time. We'll start to look at the next levels above. As for levels higher, ETH is basically on the verge of another new all-time high, sitting around $4,700 at the moment. It did have that decline of 23%, testing the previous tops, and has since bounced relatively well. The 4,800 level is the next key resistance level. You can see it was the previous all-time highs from 2021. It was the previous highs that we just saw in August. And basically, it's had a couple of attempts at that level so far. So if we are to get through it and hold above, it's just looking even stronger for Ethereum, even stronger than what I thought that this correction would be. Having said that, it did hit the 20 to 30% correction that we were covering. That was basically what ETH has done previously, and it basically did it yet again, 23% to the downside. Now, ETH BTC is on the rally here. If this is able to overcome the 4% level, you can see where the yellow line is, that's basically the 10-year resistance, and basically where it had broken down from, so basically, 3.9%, 4%, that could put it in a pretty strong position to continue to outpace Bitcoin and head towards our next target, roughly around 5 to 5.5%. Otherwise, rallying for a rejection, a pullback, and then we get going again. So either way, my thesis here is that ETH BTC has got further to go to the upside, whether it just rallies from this point or rallies, rejects, and then starts going. That's basically the short-term outlook. As for Bitcoin dominance, it's found a level at the moment at 59.3%. Small decline at the moment. If ETH BTC continues to decline, then we'll probably see Bitcoin dominance rally again. And it's only a few ticks away now from that 60% level. So that's this white line right through the top. Now we're watching the 60% level for any sort of price rejection on the Bitcoin dominance to see if this money then flows out into altcoins to give some more upside here to the rest of the market. In total, 3, so this is excluding Bitcoin and ETH, but it includes all the stablecoins, is hanging out at all-time high prices. This week, it's hit new all-time highs. Last week, hit new all-time highs. And this week's been closing at new all-time high daily closes. We are seeing some weakness for the stablecoin market, which is a good positive sign here for the rest of the bull market, but it has been unable to break down from 4.1%. So this is the level that we're watching. It did go on a good solid decline. It got rejected at 4.7, 4.75, exactly where we wanted to see it get rejected so that we could see an outflow of stablecoins into the market. And so hopefully we get this mega bull market for Bitcoin and some altcoins as well, because it doesn't look like it's going to be happening to all of the altcoins, possibly just more of the stronger alts. So if we do get this bigger flow out, then I think that could also be part of an even a bigger mega rally for Bitcoin as it leads into the peak of this cycle, and it may even look something like a nice big blow off top, maybe similar to the gold blow off top move here, which is basically consolidated and then really hasn't looked back since February 2024 once it broke out of $2,100 and basically been straight up from that point. And so that's the other side of the coin here. Is it going to be just a nice gradual move into these highs between October and December? Or do we see this mega move, especially with the backdrop of money printing and a flight to safety for gold and for new all-time highs for the stock market, and of course a bit more of this risk-on environment heading over to Bitcoin. So that's why I don't think it's a great idea, at least the way I'm trading my own portfolio, to be exiting absolutely everything every time we see any sort of correction, because we're getting towards the end of the 18-year cycle, this chart right here. We're coming up to this peak where I'm anticipating basically a lot of things to be coming to a head, everything coming to some sort of significant peak here. Now, as I said, with the USDT, the stablecoin dominance, things are looking all right. And I think that sort of breakdown for that big move for Bitcoin, that's going to happen if we see a break of 3.7%. So until we can really get that breakdown of 4.1 to then go and test the 3.7. This is still going to be this gradual move for Bitcoin and for Ethereum, of course, with a few nice volatile moves a little higher, but any of those sort of power moves, those big gold bars, I don't think we're going to see them until there's a solid breakdown of 3.7%. And so we've looked at ETH, on the Bitcoin chart as well. As for Solana, still holding out very well, $233, still above the 50%. So this is in a good position for any sort of move higher. And if we take a look out for Bitcoin and altcoins of this cycle, the white line is the interesting one right now. That's XRP. And Bitcoin being the orange line, those two are basically at a similar gain for this entire cycle. Whereas purple, that's Solana. Solana's had a pretty good move this cycle. It's outpaced everything. It hasn't really gone anywhere since that first breakout into the top of March 2024. At the moment, now it's looking like it wants to continue to outpace the rest of the alts. And you're seeing Binance also do pretty good things here. It's one of the quiet ones. It's actually doing better than ETH, only just. So ETH could catch up here, but Binance is on a much stronger path. It's hit new all-time high prices. It broke out of $1,000 and it's basically continued to remain in all-time highs, whereas Ethereum only just touched the all-time high price and has closed back underneath it. So I think Binance is another good one to keep watching. That's one that we've been talking about on our free reports with the Altcoin report coming out on Wednesdays. So there it is, Binance at $1,200 as it broke out of the $1,000 level. New all-time high prices. Another day goes by, another new all-time high. And as I said, for XRP, it is on the slower end here and just holding far more risk, a lot more volatility, to only get the same gains as Bitcoin for this cycle so far. Not to say that things aren't going to turn around for it, but something to keep in mind, especially as we head towards the end of the cycle. What do you think about altcoins? Let me know in the comment section down below. Binance, Ethereum, Solana, or XRP according to this cycle? Let me know in the comment section. Hit the like, share the content with a friend if you find some value from it, and I'll see you guys back here at the next video. Cheers.